No, I got you covered!
The story begins in the late 21st century, where the planet Earth turns into a dystopia with a dirty and bleak environment, and the only people living there are those who are economically disadvantaged. The space station Elysium is located in orbit around Earth in outer space, and every rich person's lived there, where there is no disease or pollution. A few years later, we observe a boy named Max, who lives in an orphanage in a big city, and a young girl named Fry who likes to read books. After reading a book about Elysium, which says that people will never get sick or grow old there, Max promises to accompany them to Elysium in the future. A nun then asks Max if he has stolen again, and Max nods and replies that he is saving money to buy a ticket to Elysium. The woman reveals that the utterance of such words tears at her heart, but she confesses that she realizes Max's uniqueness, and she believes that someday Max will do something very important. In the year 2154, we see Max all grown up and getting ready to go to work as a factory worker, while wearing an electronic marker. After leaving home, people make fun of Max because he has a job, and the children believe that he is rich for having a job. As he waits in line to catch the bus to work, he is approached by robot attendants. They inform him that he has a long criminal past and question him about the contents of his bag. The robots take the situation seriously and forcefully push him to the ground, causing his arm to become injured. He cracks a joke, but the robots again take him very seriously, but they don't find anything suspicious in his bag. Max then goes to the hospital, where Fry unexpectedly shows up to help him. She asks Max if he is still stealing vehicles, to which he replies no, and tells her that he now has a job that he really enjoys. Max is amazed that the woman is a nurse in this day and age, and soon after she helps him with his arm, Max asks that they go out for coffee together. Her initial reluctance stems from her assertion that her life is very complicated, but she eventually agrees to go, and states that she can pick him up on Wednesday. When he reports his case to the robotized police admin, Max feels that his report is worth it. Plus, the admin offers him a potentially dangerous drug, and Max ends up getting annoyed. Max goes to work afterward, and when Max arrives, his boss tells him that his tardiness could lead to his dismissal. Max then replies that he was involved in an accident, but his boss still gives him a warning and lets him off the hook for this tardiness issue. A robot company under the control of a billionaire named John hires him to assemble robots. At different locations in the city, those who are sick or injured are seen getting identification and boarding transportation. A gang leader named Spider oversees the shuttle operations, is the one who orders the 3 shuttles to take off, and then they leave in the direction of Elysium. Delacourt, who is the leader of Elysium, is attending a party in a palatial estate when she suddenly receives a message. The message is related to the incident that has just occurred, and the secretary of the space station's defense informs him that 3 undocumented spaceships are approaching Elysium's airspace. After a while, the craft enters Elysium's airspace illegally, prompting an order to return, which they disobey. So Delacourt gives the order to Wade Kruger, an assassin living on Earth, as the spaceships get closer to the planet. Even though he is aware of the legal consequences, he insists on carrying out his action. Agent Kruger receives the message, and a large monitor shows that he is selecting a shoulder-launched missile to carry out the mission. In the midst of the shuttle's approach to the station, Kruger fires, and the missile manages to catch up with the spacecraft and destroy 2 of them. But after the 3rd spaceship manages to evade the last missile, it is quickly able to land on the surface of Elysium. While security robots are arriving, a mother with her sick child rushes towards a large house. After breaking into the house, the woman places her son in the medical room, which diagnoses his illness and eventually cures him. But soon after, the robots arrive, and the mother and son are captured. For breaking the rules, the robots round them all up and take them back to Earth. While Max is on his way home, he meets an old acquaintance named Julio. Julio begs Max to help him steal 5 new cars from an estate, but Max declines the offer as he doesn't want to go to jail again. Max then continues his journey home, and the next day, Max goes to work as usual. But while he is there, a mistake causes the door to the radioactive room to break. An object has caused the door to jam, making his boss confront him and threaten to fire him unless he fixes it. Max is forced to enter the room to retrieve the item, but the door closes and goes into automatic procedure. While other workers try to unlock the door to save Max, they expose him to a lethal dose of radiation, and he eventually passes out. The boss of the men tells them it is too late and sends them away. Max wakes up in the company's medical area, where a robot tells him that he will suffer severe organ failure and that he will die in 5 days. The robot also gives him medicine so that he can function normally until his time comes. John, who is upset about the work stoppage, tells Max's boss that he has to fire Max, and finally he is fired. When President Patel is in Elysium, he calls Delacourt and informs her that she has violated the executive order by killing 46 people, and that she has used agents in an unauthorized manner to carry out her actions. Afterwards, she promises to protect the station and their children, but Patel sternly warns her and threatens to remove her from office if she persists in unapproved behavior. When Max arrives home, his friend Julio realizes that he is sick and offers to help him get to his house. After vomiting, he tells Julio that his radiation exposure has left him with only 5 days to live. So Max wants to go to someone called Spider, but Julio says that they can't afford a ticket. Meanwhile, Fry is talking to a hospital doctor about a sick child. The doctor tells Fry that they can't treat the child, and Fry is responsible for taking him home. At that moment, Max approaches Spider and asks about the ticket purchase. Spider confesses that he doesn't have enough funds, but Max insists that he is willing to do whatever it takes to pay Spider. Then Spider reveals that he has a task that no one else dares to do. By transferring knowledge into another person's mind, he shows Max a technology that can access biological information from another person's brain. So, Spider wants Max to control the mind of an Elysium millionaire to gain access to bank codes, passwords, and login information. This would allow them to earn trillions and become filthy rich. Due to radiation exposure, Spider observes Max's weakness and tells him that he needs a machine-powered mobility aid, which would increase his strength like a robot. Max vows to carry out the plan, and Max plans to target the wealthy John, who is the boss of his own company, but he insists that Julio should also get a ticket. In order to extend the defense contract for the space station, John comes to Elysium to meet with Delacourt. They enter a room located in a remote area, and she asks about the possibility that John can replace the station systems and install a new president in charge. Delacourt insists that John fulfill the request, promising him military contracts for the next 2 centuries if she wins the presidency. John says that it could be done, and he agrees to carry out the proposed coup. At that moment, an identification data is attached to Max's arm, and they tell him that it will merge with his DNA, allowing him to blend in as if he has been born in Elysium. In the next step, they begin the process of attaching mobility devices to his bone structure and internal neurological system. When Max wakes up, he finds that he has been transformed into a cyborg. The next scene shows John encrypting his brain information, ensuring the death of anyone who tries to access it, and then destroying his computer. A woman enters and announces that his shuttle is ready, at which point John heads towards it. Before John's shuttle takes off, Max and the others prepare to shoot it down outside the facility. Max fires explosives at the shuttle as soon as they notice, which causes the engines to shut down and forces the shuttle to land. Delacourt, who is vigilantly monitoring John, realizes the imminent danger. He calls Agent Kruger, whom he puts in charge of preventing the criminals from stealing vital knowledge about the brain, and he dispatches a military plane. Max, along with the others, chases John's plane, which eventually crashes. Upon arriving at the crashed spaceship, 2 robot bodyguards appear to protect John. Using explosive charges, Max is able to eliminate one of them, and with hand-to-hand combat, he is able to sever the head of the other robot. They quickly open the shuttle and begin the process of downloading information from John's brain. But upon completing the procedure, they find that the data has been mixed up. As they attempt to escape the incoming military aircraft, Max's head begins to hurt, and they have trouble escaping. Agent Kruger arrives and takes out everyone except Max and Julio, who are trying to escape in a vehicle. The explosives hit their vehicle, causing it to flip over. As Max is trying to crawl out of the car, Kruger appears and stabs him with a knife. Just as Kruger is about to finish him off with the sword, Julio quickly starts shooting at Kruger. The disturbance prompts Kruger to rush towards Julio, but he is unable to get a shot at him, at which point Kruger stabs Julio with the sword, and finally he dies. Max manages to get his hands on a firearm, and as Max starts firing his weapon, Kruger quickly sets up an energy barrier and simply faints. As Max approaches Julio, he realizes that he is already dead and begins to flee. When Kruger regains consciousness, Delacourt informs her that Max has the information and emphasizes the importance of her capture. He also discovers that John has already lost his life due to lack of blood. By analyzing the devices at the crash site, Kruger and his men discover that John has brain information capable of resetting Elysium's entire system. They conclude that this is the reason why Delacourt desperately needs Max, which leads them to send robots after him. Meanwhile, Delacourt has imposed a no-fly zone across the major city, prompting Spider to observe the sudden blocking of all city signals. That night, Fry approaches the hospitalized girl, promising to retrieve her vehicle to take her home. As Fry leaves the hospital, Max, who is lying on the street and looking weak from a stab wound, suddenly calls out his name. Max confesses that he is being chased and will take his life if anyone sees him, but Fry insists that she must take him inside. The next day, Max wakes up at Frey's residence, receiving treatment for his wounds, and they strike up a conversation. A young girl, Matilda, suddenly appears and calls Fry her mother, indicating that Fry was once married and is now a widow. Fry tells her that Max is a friend she has known since she was her age, and she gives him information on her question about who Max is. When Matilda leaves, Fry breaks the news to Max that her daughter has leukemia and is seriously ill. After learning that Max has a fake Elysium citizen ID, Fry pleads with him to take her to an Elysium medical facility, but Max insists that he cannot take her to an Elysium medical facility due to the risk of being discovered and executed. As soon as Max leaves them, a drone from outside notices him and follows him. In the end, she throws a hard object at the drone, knocking it down. He then begins to flee, but Kruger realizes this and orders everyone to get to the location as quickly as possible. Kruger suddenly storms into Frey's house, claiming that they see a man as he leaves. After being caught helping Max, Kruger decides to transport Fry and her daughter. Meanwhile, Max arrives at Spider's facility, demanding a means of transportation to Elysium before his death. Spider angrily states that the network of others prevents them from flying, but he thinks that if the knowledge Max has in his mind is so deep, it could potentially cover the entire city, so it would be wise if they diligently explore its contents. So they establish a connection between Max and the computer, and Spider discovers that Max has the restart software for Elysium, which is able to apply the entire system back to the beginning. Max confesses that he only has a few days left to live, and he intends to utilize this knowledge to bribe Elysium to get to his place. After his departure, he returns to the disabled drone, hoping to attract Kruger's attention. When Kruger sees the deformed drone, he immediately rushes to confront it. Soon after their successful landing, Max appears with a grenade in hand, threatening to blow his head off if they take any action. Max then states that if they fly him to Elysium, he will give them the knowledge from his brain, to which Kruger agrees and allows him to board. Max enters the plane and soon realizes Fry and Matilda are already there. Kruger informs Delacourt of Max's capture, and simultaneously, she orders the removal of the no-fly zone. When the Spiders unexpectedly return to the internet, they immediately begin monitoring Max through a tracker attached to his outerwear, after the Spiders have secretly attached it when Max goes out in a rage. After realizing that Max is on his way to Elysium, Spider instructs his soldiers to ready their weapons and embark on a shuttle adventure with him. Soon Max and the others arrive at Elysium, where Max apologizes to Fry. Kruger and another man suddenly attack Max, and as a result of the conflict, the pilot loses control of the spaceship, causing it to start spinning. Max accidentally drops his explosives, but it not only destroys the plane's engine, but also causes Kruger's face to explode, and finally he dies. When the spaceship finally stops, it is in a suburban neighborhood. After observing the events unfolding on the monitor screen, Delacourt orders the removal of everyone on board. When Max regains consciousness, he immediately unlocks the shuttle, then climbs up to help Fry out of her immobilized seat. When Fry takes Matilda and runs out with her to see the medical facilities at a neighboring house, Max starts attacking two people who also wake up at the same time. The others follow Fry inside the building, while Max receives an electric shock and eventually passes out. Matilda is unable to get help from the machine, as it has no identity data. Fry pleads with Kruger's men to help save her daughter, who is in a coma, but the man electrocutes her instead, and she passes out as well. When Max finally wakes up, he sees Delacourt asking the technicians if the data is still intact, and the technicians confirm that it is. Delacourt then leaves the room, adding that they have to get Fry and Matilda out of the room. Spider and his team make it to Elysium and land there simultaneously, where they are able to locate Max and proceed to go towards him. Two of Kruger's men simultaneously take Fry and Matilda, locking them in a room. After confirming that Kruger's brain is unharmed, they place him in the medical room for further examination. Meanwhile, Max is able to escape from his confinement and manages to take down the two scientists. When he inquires about Fry and Matilda's whereabouts, they give him information, and he then steals one of their security cards. Delacourt unexpectedly confronts Kruger, accusing him of mishandling the situation and threatening to execute them both for treason. Kruger, however, turns around and stabs Fry in the neck, throwing Delacourt into the room with Fry and Matilda. After Fry fails to save Delacourt, Kruger orders his two men to finish off the politicians inside the building, after which Kruger promises to find Max and destroy him. We then witness Kruger's troops throwing explosives at Elysium's police and politicians, ultimately costing them their lives. Max quickly finds the completely destroyed control room, where a large monitor shows Fry and Matilda, while another monitor shows Spider and his team. He grabs a communication device and asks Spider if he can hear him, which he does. When Max asks Spider if the restart software in his brain can turn everyone into citizens of Elysium, and Spider replies, it can. After that, he discusses the strategy with Spider, and then Max goes towards the room where Fry is. After wearing a motion aid like Max's, Kruger orders one of his men to finish off Fry and Matilda, and then he proceeds to search for Max. In the room where Fry is, one of the subordinates enters, but he is unable to take any action, as Max has already arrived and is beating the life out of him. The second person, who is with Kruger, suddenly appears and starts shooting at Max, but after obtaining a powerful firearm, Max manages to shoot the second person with a futuristic rifle, and finally he dies. At that moment, he takes Fry out of the room and takes him to the elevator, where he tells Fry that they have to separate, ordering her to go to the surface and find a medical room. Max promises to fix the problem, but Fry says that Matilda has no identifying data. Even though Fry wants Max to accompany him, Max keeps the elevator running for him, assuring Fry that he will catch up with him soon. But just as the elevator doors begin to close, Max begins to hear Kruger screaming in the distance. The door opens, but it is Spider and his group who enter, not Kruger. As soon as Max instructs Spider to send someone to help Fry reach the medical facility, Spider complies with his request. As they head towards Elysium's core system room, Kruger unexpectedly finds them and manages to finish off Spider's men. With the door closed behind them, Max and Spider try to escape, but Kruger catches them in his grasp. Max's head begins to hurt once again at that very moment, and Kruger is able to continue his way through the situation by jumping over the two men to block their path. Max tries to shield himself from Kruger's attack after that, and as a result of Spider's attack, Kruger drops his sword, which then falls off the platform. Before chasing Max once again, Kruger uses the knife to stab Spider's hand. Throughout the fight, Kruger looks superior to his opponent. Spider manages to break free from the knife he is holding and quickly hacks the door of the room containing the system to access it. While they are still fighting, Kruger manages to stab Max. Max is injured, but in a fit of rage, Max jumps on Kruger to release the brain connection that links him to his locomotion device. Now Kruger is weaker, and Max finds himself in a stronger position than before. Suddenly, Kruger ties himself to Max and then activates a grenade for both of them. But Max manages to break free just in time, causing Kruger to fall from a height, and finally he dies. Spider manages to open the door, allowing them both to enter. When they leave, they close the door behind them, trapping the Elysium police officers who try to stop them outside. After they arrive, Max connects his brain to Elysium's main system. Meanwhile, Fry manages to reach the residence and puts Matilda in the medical room. Spider manages to connect Max to the system, giving him the ability to perform a restart. But after the program launches, Spider warns Max that no medical facility can cure him. Through a gadget, Max communicates with Fry, expressing his regret but stating that he cannot fulfill the promise he made to her while in the elevator. He also reveals that he has fulfilled the promise he made to her when they were young, to take them to Elysium, which he has done. Then Max activates the software and initiates a system restart while reflecting on their childhood memories. The Elysium officers, along with President Patel, manage to break down the door to enter the room. As they attempt to capture Spider, the countdown to the system restart settings ends, and eventually, the entire Elysium area blacks out. In no time, the system regains its strength and begins entering new people into its database. After seeing the activation of the medical facility and the start of the healing process of Matilda, who quickly regains consciousness, Fry is filled with great joy. In addition, robot soldiers unexpectedly appear in the system room and arrest the Elysium officials for their actions. When President Patel gives the order to the robots to capture Spider, the robots say that they cannot capture the citizens of Elysium, and so President Patel becomes confused. Suddenly, the Elysium system recognizes new people on Earth who need medical care and sends a large medical spacecraft to help with the healing process they need. Large numbers of people rush to the spacecraft, where robots immediately begin helping them recover from their injuries and illnesses. The story ends with Fry gazing up at the breathtaking view of Earth above her, and she reminisces about all the fun times she spent with Max in the past. Click the left screen to continue watching the latest video, or the right screen to watch all videos in one playlist. Thank you for watching and wish you good health.